I think from a power perspective, of course, when you're challenging power, when you're challenging the concentration of wealth, when you fight really entrenched power, that power will fight you back. And when you are aiming at the vice grip of the people who own media companies and the people who own a lot of institutions, they're going to make you controversial, right? The goal is that they know that the message is potent, and so they can't be seen attacking the message because that makes them look bad. So what they can do is attack the messenger. And so if you make me or any person who says similar things as controversial as possible, then you can stigmatize those opinions in the American public. I think about when President Obama had this moment when he was talking about, people of these huge scions of industry, the "you didn't build that alone" moment. And it was this huge controversy at the time. It was the same thing. Like what he was saying, he was right. He was right. And so you have to create controversy in order to disrupt truth. Because if people hear it straight, then they're going to agree with you, and that is bad for the powers that be. So I think there's a certain incentive from that perspective. And they want you to think like, oh, he or she just didn't say it right, or they didn't include all the points, or, they will, exploit whatever thing. There will never, newsflash, there will never be an uncontroversial messenger for challenging the structures of power that are keeping wages low. That person, whether me or anybody else, is always going to be in the sights, right? But then the second thing is that I think it's not just personal to me, but I think my presence as a person who was a waitress, I'm like, it's like I slipped through the cracks. I'm not supposed to be there. And according to them, right? And I'm not bought. I don't take corporate money. The average donation to my campaign is $16. In 2 years, there's maybe been 8 max out checks of like $2,500 to my campaign. I think that there's a real class aspect to this. I think there's a lot of people that really believe that if you don't make a lot of money, it's reflective of your intelligence. It's reflective of your capacity as a human being. And I think that there's a very real built-in denigration and devaluing of people because of the class that they're in. And of course, I'm a woman. And of course, I'm Latina. And so, and I'm from the Bronx. Yes. And so it means that my mere existence is inherently subversive in the place that I am. And so, listen, it's misogyny in politics is like one of the strongest forces that exist. And it's not like I'm not even talking about baked in biases. It's just also a form of structural power. You're challenging power. And the way, when you are wielding power on behalf of your constituency, it looks different. I think sometimes it's inherently seen as very disruptive because I don't approach power in a patriarchal way. I don't believe, in domination, authoritarianism, in top-down leadership. I believe you wield it differently, and it breaks people. And I also don't act in the way that women are supposed to act in a society like this. Like, you're coming at me crazy. I'm not going to be deferential to you. My job is not to make men or anyone else. My job. No, like.
And just because you knew you were coming here, you stirred up some stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
And you had some things to say this week on a podcast about billionaires, and you said you can't earn $1 billion. Talk about what you said, because this spurred a reaction from
yes,
from Mr. Bezos and his newspaper.
Yes. Mr. Bezos's newspaper was not happy that I discussed abuses of market power and scale. And I think there are quite a lot of billionaires. I mean, there aren't a lot of billionaires in an absolute sense, but the proportion of billionaires that are upset with my comments are quite high. And I think that, to a working person and to working people, earn means something. The calluses on your hands, the aches of your joints, the way that we earn ourselves through school, through, our first job. And I think that we are in an emperor with no clothes moment when it comes to the American economy and our democracy. The Virginia redistricting maps were just overturned this morning by judges that are largely financed by a movement of billionaires. And American inequality is at an absolute peak. And we have to ask ourselves if this is how we want to live as a society. If we want 3,400 people to be prioritized over well over 300 million. And when we question the legitimacy of that power structure, the people at the top are going to be very mad. And the little hobby newspapers that they've bought, which they love to say that we are making the quality of everything better. Jeff Bezos purchased the Washington Post. He laid off some of the highest qualified journalists that made it an American institution so that he could turn it into a mouthpiece that launders his personal agenda and opinions. And he is using it because, right, for a lot of folks, it's not enough to be powerful. They have to be loved. And he then uses this mouthpiece to take aim at politicians that want to question the deeply unequal and unjust distribution of power in America. And they want to continue to undercut, threaten, punish those who say democracy belongs at the ballot box, and it's also measured in power, economic power, political power, and that power should belong with the people of this country, not the very few. What this is going to cost us also in our economic outlook and our humanity. First, in our economic outlook, one of the only reasons that the United States outperformed the rest of the developed world in terms of how we weathered the COVID pandemic, because while it was hard for us, the rest of the world had it way worse. And one of the only reasons that we fared the way that we did was because of immigrants. When you think about how immigrants show up in your life, whether they are your friends, your coworkers, etc. Our healthcare system stands to collapse without immigrants. Our food system stands to collapse. Our housing system stands to collapse. That's the economic point. Then there is the human point. What is it costing us as human beings and as a society to look the other way when women and children and innocent people and young men of promise are ripped off the street and thrown into a van and disappeared and you never see them again? There's what that costs them, but think about what it costs you to look the other way. What does it cost us as a society that starts to normalize looking the other way? Then we start looking the other way as women bleed out in parking lots in states that have banned abortion. We start looking the other way as VRA districts start to get stripped out of our Congress. We start looking the other way as the free press becomes consumed and intimidated by the very powers that they exist to check. What does it cost us and you as a human being to look the other way? And so there's the economic cost. Your health care is going up. Long-term care for our parents and grandparents are going to skyrocket. It is costing us. It's already costing us. And then there's what does it cost our soul? And that, in a political context, people think that that's naive, flowery talk. I don't think it is. Because what is all of this for if it is not to live a dignified life in a community and country of integrity? We're hard-pressed to see how the average American is going to benefit from rounding up innocent people, building a mass surveillance state, giving impunity to folks that are shooting Americans dead in the street. We need to abolish ICE. And I can't tell you how the average American is going to benefit from it, but I can tell you how we are going to pay the price. We're going to pay the price because $1 trillion was gutted out of our healthcare system to pay for an extrajudicial force that is building a mass surveillance database of everyday Americans, scanning your face, observing your online activity, looking at your purchases, without so much as a judicial warrant when they decide to bust into people's houses.